Hi, my dear so family. So I wanted to make another video because I've just noticed that Neptune and Mercury are going to be meeting on 29 degree 59 minutes. Wow, that's the very last degree, the very last second, the very last minute of the chart. So some idea kind of came to my mind, and I thought it was going to be time to kind of like look at this from a different angle as well. And therefore, we are going to be talking about Neptune moving into the sign of Aries again. So I've made three videos so far. I made Neptune in Aries last year. I made one a couple of days ago about the ingress chart of Neptune into the sign of Aries. I made a video about Neptune through the houses, Neptune in Aries through the houses, so that you can get information on a personal level. And this video is also going to be covering quite a lot about Neptune in the sign of Aries, but I wanted to approach it a little bit from a Symbolon card point of view as well. So, because I do love Symbolon cards, as you might remember or know, so I decided to kind of like integrate that into my work as well right now. Now, you might be wondering why I'm in a strange position, and the reason being is because I managed to pull my back. So I have to be laying down. Sorry about it. Usually I would be sitting up, but I just wanted to put this video out there for you. Sometimes what happens is that basically I've got some I've got a hernia actually, and then sometimes it badly hurts when I'm sitting, and sometimes my back does the same as well. So I've got on both sides, and today is the day when actually I've got it both places. So this is the reason why I'm in a weird position, and sorry about it. Now, before we get going, remember I've got the Saturn course coming up, 4th of May. It's going to be 20 weeks, all about Saturn. So it's time to reframe Saturn. And remember, Saturn is also moving into the sign of Aries. And I really feel like it's time to understand Saturn in the bestest possible way. So I really hope to see you on my course. It's going to be exciting. It's 20 weeks. I think it's very affordable. We're going to be looking at the meanings of Saturn, Saturn through houses, signs, in aspects, Saturn returns, Saturn as a young adult, and Saturn as a wise person. So you're going to get to know everything about Saturn. But let's get going now with our Neptune, Mercury, and actually Venus conjunction. So we've got a triple conjunction going on. So basically, the conjunction happens on 29 degree 59 minutes. So the very last degree, the very last minute. So it means that basically we are receiving a big fat news. We are receiving this big message that will change everything just because Neptune will straight away move into the sign of Aries. So how it kind of feels like that, of course, Mercury has been on 29 degree of Pisces before. That actually happened on the 2nd of March. But what it really feels like that Mercury went into the sign of Aries to gather information, to ask question about the individuality, to ask question about potential fights or freedom and all these type of things. And then it gathered some bits and bobs. Maybe it got a little bit scary being in the sign of Aries because what I've seen, I immediately have to share that with Neptune. So it's running back to Neptune to have this conversation about the findings it had. And then they meet on 29 degree 59 minutes. The question is, do we have the time to actually have the entire conversation? Can I just pass on the knowledge that I gathered, or Neptune is kind of like rushing into the sign of Aries, because Neptune will do that pretty much straight after on the very same day. Once the conjunction is taking place, a new conjunction is happening on the 29th, 30th of November, March, depending on where you are. And of course, if a couple of hours later or a few hours later, I am going to be moving into the sign of Aries, maybe we don't have actually the the, kind of like enough time to have a conversation. So on the 30th of March, Mercury re-enters Pisces, straight away conjuncts Neptune, and the Neptune a few hours later it moves into the sign of Aries. So the question is, do we have enough preparation there? So that's one thing I wanted to share here. And of course, Mercury and Neptune already made a conjunction, but it happened on 28 degree of Pisces. So that was also a type of a message or a confusing conversation that went down, or maybe it was a little bit more on the subtle way. But now hitting the 29 degree really feels like that we've got something to end, a very karmic type of conversation, or it can be a little bit more heated as well. Not in like not necessarily something that gets blown out of the ballpark because this is still Pisces. But you know what? I'm rushing. I'm moving into the sign of Aries. I don't have time to chit chat with you, so let's get to the point. And, I looked up what happened on the 2nd of March when the conjunction went down between them two, where there was a near total power cut in Chile due to a transmission line failure and left 8 billion or 8 billion households without electricity. I mean, interesting because Mercury is something to do with electricity from a traditional point of view. Of course, Uranus would be the one that would be ruling it right now. But any type of line failure can be very Mercurian. And also, guess what happened? Zelensky and Trump had the meeting, which we have all heard about, of course. It made the headlines. That happened, or at least the headlines really went down on the 2nd of March. So I think we could be expecting something similar coming now with the upcoming conjunction on the 30th of March. And also, the other headline that went down on the 2nd of March is that the judge rules Trump cannot fire a head of federal watchdog agency without any type of cause. So that was another big headline. So, because Mercury entered the sign of Aries, it kind of knows what to expect there. So, Mercury is moving back into Pisces, will communicate with Neptune and tell him what to expect in the sign of Aries. Because Mercury is the planet of messenger. That's his job, right? And it can be like that Neptune can move into Aries with certain type of like grace or more knowledge about what to expect. But as I mentioned at the beginning, did they have enough time to kind of have this conversation? Because imagine that between two kind of like cusps or signs, there is a wall there. So it might not be like Neptune is not hearing much anymore once it moves into the sign of Aries. And what is Neptune? I mean, think about when we are born. You are not an individual just yet. You are connected with your mom. Of course, first by a code, then by mom, what tells you to do, and so forth. So you don't have your full individuality formed just yet. But then, of course, after you will form your own identity. But once you have created your own individual approach or identity in life, you start yearning to belong to someone. You want to be a part of something bigger. And that's why often we go into a relationship. And Aries represents individuality. So it's a yearn to have a relationship with the self. But Neptune wants to have a relationship with others also. Neptune symbolizes something that is not personal, not something that you can hold in your own hand. So often it's kind of like an imaginary relationship. It feels like that I've created this beautiful connection with someone or something, but unfortunately, you might think it's great, but it turns out to be sour by the end of it. Neptune is a transpersonal planet, and each transpersonal planets are all about taking the humankind to the next phase that we are not prepared for. All of the outer planet transitions are starting with chaos for sure. So, of course, Pluto started its own journey. Neptune is about to do that. Uranus will follow after. And of course, Saturn, as a karma planet, is in the picture as well with the sign change. So, the next couple of years are a little bit chaotic, to be frank. And, while it's moving into the sign of Aries, Aries does things alone. But Neptune would like to do things together with someone. Let's share the burden. Let's fight together. And Aries is like, no, I can fight alone. I don't need anyone's help. So surely this shows to me that we are going to be moving out of certain type of connections, maybe countries or unions, but some will join instead. Maybe smaller kind of countries and unions are going to be united, coming together so that they become a bigger power. And maybe some really small countries will join forces with bigger countries to feel protected. Because with Neptune in Aries, it's all about I don't want to be alone. I don't want to be lonely. And let's be frank, Ukraine is doing that right now because they want to belong to the EU. And I think with Neptune in the sign of Aries, there is a huge chance for that. Or Ukraine will belong to NATO as well, because all I want is protection. So it might happen. Now, of course, Mercury went into the sign of Aries and had these talks already, talked about the self, talked about individuality, talked about independence and fight and wars and all these type of things. So maybe Mercury got a little bit scared. This is the reason why it's running back to Neptune to report. Neptune represents things that makes you happy. And Aries will go after it. So that's a positive manifestation. I'm going after my own happiness. But Neptune also shows where we are insecure. It's the higher octave of Venus, and Venus is our security system. Neptune is about insecurity. So I do not feel safe, and I will need to make myself feel safe, no matter what the cost is. And that is the Aries element. Aries is never backing down from a fight. It's highly egotistical, and no problem with that at all, because I'm entitled for happiness. And of course, with Mercury and Neptune on 29 degree, connected with Venus, there will be peace talks, for sure. But someone will lie, a big one. I would call this as an ultimate lie. And potentially that will be caught out either when Mars is on 29 degree of Cancer or when Saturn reaches 29 degree of Pisces. Both of them are going to be happening in the next couple of months anyway. But I'm expecting a big fat lie to be happening. I call Neptune as the Mariah Carey will belong together archetype because Neptune wants to belong, as mentioned earlier. But it's Aries. It is me. I have my own rules. But with Neptune, we still belong together. So how I imagine that is that, okay, you know what? I'm going to, let's say, join EU, but this is what I want from you. So it could be kind of like a situation where someone gets exceptions. For example, a kind of like a preferential treatment from someone. So that, you keep your identity, but you still belong somewhere. I hope that makes sense. And, often with Neptune is like the pigeons. When you throw the crumbs on the floor, all will go there. So it's kind of like I want to follow that movement also. One starts the movement, the rest will follow. So it's kind of like the mad, stupid idiot who stands up and dares doing something. We can be looking at that person like that, but a lot will follow. So again, I tend to call this as the ice bucket challenge type of scenario as well. One started and then a lot of people followed after. And of course, this is fun, but we're going to start seeing this in bigger levels. But the other thing that is interesting to me that Neptune has just finished its full circle as it was discovered in the sign of Aquarius with Saturn. So we had a Neptune and Saturn conjunction. I think it was on 25 degree of Aquarius. Now Neptune was discovered in Aquarius, though, yes, but it is in the last sign now, which is Pisces. So it's starting in Aries, which is the very first sign of all. And it will be meeting Saturn there as well. So it really looks like that all of a sudden we're going to have a lot more kind of like experience and knowledge about Neptune. Now, it doesn't mean that we don't have the knowledge now. What I actually mean is that we are ready to integrate Neptune into our life because we have got the full circle. We've got the full knowledge about what it wants. So it's surely a spiritual movement that I'm seeing with this. And maybe we're going to discover, I don't know, moons of Neptune and so forth. So I can imagine such things as well. But I meant it more, not necessarily in a literal way. Now, as mentioned earlier, Mercury went into the sign of Aries. And it is like the messenger who was sent in to see what to expect in there. But Neptune is very sensitive. It doesn't want to get burnt. Maybe this is the reason why Neptune was like, can you go into that sign and then explore it a little bit more for me, and then come back and tell me what to expect? So that's exactly what happened. But as mentioned earlier, Mercury might have gotten a bit scared here. So it turned retrograde and decided that I don't want to see the full picture. So it may be, even though I feel like I'm in detriment in the sign of Pisces, I'm gonna go back in there because it's just somehow more comforting. There is not much of a cruelty there. So maybe Neptune wanted to get the hope from Mercury that it will be all okay there. But once you are there, you're gonna have your own experiences. And Mercury is the planet of running errands. So it is doing whatever the gods are telling him to do. And Aries is egoist. Neptune says we are all in the same boat. So Neptune wants to dissolve the ego here. It will want to bring people together. Neptune wants to help, being more receptive towards others' pain. But Aries is like, I don't care who gets hurt. It's just a collateral damage. And this might be this kind of like ambivalent feeling might be seen a lot more among all of us. Neptune represents floods, but it's not just necessarily the floods as in, physical floods, but something that is too much, something that is suffocating me. And eventually I want to run away from it. And in the sign of Aries, the suffocation of the strength and the power dynamics. That's why what happens here is that I idealize the strong ones. I idealize the fittest ones because they can survive. So one of the questions surely pops up here is that how strong are you physically, emotionally, physically Aries, emotionally Neptune, mentally Mercury. And mentally, Mercury was only able to collect the information to Neptune on a mental level, not so much on an emotional level, because that's exactly where Mercury is lacking. So it is telling like Neptune that, oh, you know what, mentally I got a lot stronger. Ooh, this is great, and so forth. But it wasn't analyzing the emotional part of it because Aries doesn't allow that either. Because I have to be stronger than, I cannot be vulnerable. So there is going to be a lot of peace talks for sure, because due to Venus also being super close to this conjunction as well. So this could be like, I forgive you what you have said. I give you an apology for not wearing a suit or whatever it is. But it comes with a background motive. It is not a straightforward talk. And surely Neptune in the sign of Aries will tell us that we need to love the self. Mercury in Aries, talk to the self. Tell me how much you love the self. Because Mercury went retrograde on 9 degree and Venus went retrograde on 10 degree. So, or do you expect others to validate you and tell you how strong and fit you are? So, Pisces, the ultimate goal of Pisces, because Neptune has been in the sign of Pisces since 2011, maybe April. So it's 14 years. And the ultimate goal of Pisces is unconditional love, understanding, and peace. So ask yourself the question, how much did you manage to do that? Are you in peace with your surroundings, with your life? Do you understand the path ahead of you? Do you understand what love means? Because if not, Neptune is causing a lot of chaos in the sign of Aries. Because we haven't been able to be in peace with the self and with others. So we're going to end up fighting. Neptune's outcome highly depends on whatever it was doing in the sign of Pisces. And when we look at the world, let's be frank, I don't see unconditional love. I don't see peace. So am I very positive about this constellation? Not so much. And also, Neptune is like, because it's interesting, Mercury, neighborhood countries. Neptune is like, who cares about borders? Let's just dissolve them. So I'm just wondering, if there are going to be, like, as I said, small countries getting together to make them bigger. I'm sure Albania will get into the EU. I'm very certain about that. Maybe it's just going to be happening in 4 or 5 years' time, but I think it will happen. But remember, I made a video about the English chart, and then I talked about England as well as the US. And let's not forget that in England, we had an Aries rising sign, and Mars is in the fourth house. That's exactly what I mean by the borders. It really feels like that either the borders in England are going to disappear or we're going to reinforce the borders with neighborhood countries. So let's see where it leads with Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and so forth. But something is might be going down there in the next few years. And in the video, I talked about the Commonwealth as well. But with Neptune in the sign of Aries, sign of Pisces, we had a lot of mental health problems. I think we were all very confused. A lot of us were unable to make a decision, not knowing what the truth is, not knowing anything, not knowing what is going on around us. Lot of confusion. Now, Mercury went into the sign of Aries to get knowledge, to get things straight. I'm going to talk to you straight to the point. But maybe it has regretted doing that. So Neptune is kind of like walking into the sign of Aries to apologize on behalf of Mercury. That could be a scenario as well. So I'm expecting a lot of chaos at the beginning of this transition, to be frank. But I do believe Saturn is going to be eventually a benefit in the sign of Aries because I will not allow, Saturn says, I will not allow not to notice all these shady stuff in the world. It's gonna balloon pop. It's gonna pop the balloon, sorry. It's gonna make us see the reality. Because all these nice connections might be forming, but someone is gonna show their white teeth at the end of it. Or the black teeth, whatever it is, whatever the saying is. If you don't wish to see the reality, it will simply bring a lot of issues to the surface. But more about that next month. But because we are all afraid of something as well. Often what happens with Neptune that we turn towards spirituality, psychology, and self-healing programs. I think this would be a great investment for many of us, understanding how the self functions. And Mercury already started to gain knowledge about the self, about relationships. So it has got a bit of a knowledge about that, not necessarily the emotional part. But then the other scenario that comes to my mind is, okay, Mercury is running back to tell all these information to Neptune. But Venus ran into Neptune beforehand. So the Venus re-entered the sign of Pisces on the 27th of March and made a conjunction to Neptune straight away. While actually Mercury was in trine to Juno. So Mercury was negotiating with other countries, partners about love stories and so forth. Venus went back into the sign of Pisces and gave information about Aries to Neptune already. And let's just think about it. Aries, sorry, Venus is really nice. It's really beautiful. It is very convincing. It seduces. It says whatever Neptune wants to hear. So Neptune got a picture of how Aries looks like. And then now Mercury comes and then tells information to Neptune as well. Who to believe? I'm utterly and completely confused. Shall I listen to Venus, who is so convincing? Or Mercury, who actually knows the truth, but sometimes it's a trickster, it's a liar. I cannot make up my mind. So Neptune says, you know what, let me go into the sign of Aries and then let me figure this out myself. Or I'm going with a clouded judgment because I made a decision. Okay, I'm going to listen to Venus, I'm going to listen to Mercury. And then I'm going to be, leading the life accordingly. So surely that's where Saturn will also help, who is going to try to give us clarity about all these shady businesses. And often because Neptune is thinking what to do. If I choose Venus, I hurt Mercury. If I choose Mercury, I hurt Venus. But Venus is really powerful now because it's in exaltation. Whatever I choose, I make the wrong decision. So it represents a crossroads. But at the same time, it's thinking there is no right or wrong decisions. Either way, I gain something and I lose as well. So this is the ultimate realization that I cannot simply make everyone happy. I have got one choice left. I'm going to choose myself. Neptune is the planet of drama triangle. Now, I've spoken about this in courses and I've spoken about this in different videos as well. But if I choose one, I get blamed for it. If I choose the other, I get the blame for it. If I dare to blame someone, I'm going to be kind of like outcasted. They're gonna start judging me. Poor me. Or I'm gonna start judging others. So Neptune, unfortunately, sometimes is unable to decide. It has got that people pleaser quality to it. And Neptune Venus get along pretty well. So probably Neptune would be choosing Venus, the seduction, because Venus exactly knows what to say. But in the sign of Aries, we are forced to make a decision. We cannot postpone things anymore, especially when Saturn joins. So we decide to hurt others. Not because I want to do this. Often I am pressured to do this. So it looks like that, let's say, a country is going to be swayed into a situation that is not necessarily up for, but they have no choice because they might have got a little outlined contractual small print type of, addition to a contract. And that's why you need to be extremely careful as well what you sign nowadays, especially on around the 30th. And Neptune and Aries, we have a vision to fight for. It's exactly the NATO. It really feels like the NATO because NATO says that one gets attacked, we are all attacked. Neptune in Aries, absolutely. So I'm just wondering, NATO will dissolve? Someone will go out of NATO? Neptune is the self-defeating behaviors, self-harming as well. So it can feel like that my own people kill me, sacrifice me for ultimate happiness. Because it can feel like I didn't have any other choice. I don't know, there is nothing wrong with that guy, but I'm gonna kill them because I have to save the self. Or it saves kind of like the whole unity. Let's sacrifice one. So I can imagine that a leader is going to die at the hand of his own people. Now, I want to put a picture up for you because that could be actually really kind of like exciting to look at the Symbolon cards. If you haven't used Symbolon yet and you are kind of like an astrology student, then I would say that this could be a really kind of like good help for you. If you are a very visual person, and let's be frank, Neptune is very visual. And basically, what you see on the card is that we do have got this tired soldier laying down at the tree, and it has got kind of there is this ghost there. So basically, what this card shows us is that I'm sleeping, I'm daydreaming, and so forth. It's definitely a tired soldier. It has no motivation at the moment to go into a fight. We can see that even from the sword as well. It's just resting up. Maybe it doesn't have the ability to fight anymore because maybe it's injured. But he sees itself the bravest, the fittest, the smartest, the most handsome one ever. So either he's daydreaming about becoming that or he sees himself like that. That's often the problem with Neptune in the sign of Aries. We see something the way we shouldn't see that. Often we see a friend being our enemy. Often we see the enemy as our friend. And that's where Saturn also comes into the picture, who is going to give us a lot of clarity about who our friends are and who are not. And with Neptune, we idealize. So it will idealize Aries, it will idealize the heroes, the fight, the independency, the winning, the fittest, the strongest. And guess what? You compare yourself to them. So I compare myself to others and maybe you even, let's say you are the strongest person in the world, and then they're gonna promise to you that you are going to be the second strongest. Where is the delivery? Because it might not get delivered to you. And with Neptune here, we idealize the power, the strength, which is super dangerous, to be frank, because Because when you are all focused about strength and power, then you are so paranoid that it gets taken away from you, and that leads to aggression. That leads to taking risks. And that's where this kind of like spiritual warrior archetype could be coming into the picture. We can get into cults with this, or simply, oh, poor me, and then we become a little bit more on the whiny side. But surely we're going to start seeing fighting for power, unfortunately. But let's have a look at some positives of this as well. Because you might have used Neptune really well. So maybe you had the dreams. Now you are ready to go after your dreams. You make them happen. Maybe you started letting go of certain type of illusions. Now you are even kind of like cutting them out completely. You're gonna have new approach to your dreams. And you decided I'm gonna take the lead of my own life. And you stop being dependent on others. And also this is about being brave to explore your mental health, being brave to explore spirituality, being brave to admit that you believe in psychology and spirituality. I have actually, I was sharing this information. I mean, the fact, not an information, a fact with a friend of mine that I do have a couple of celebrity clients, but they don't want to disclose their names to anyone. And of course, I would never do that anyway. But one told me because I don't want to be ridiculed that I have personal readings. And I think a lot of people kind of think like that still about spirituality. So maybe we are going to be a lot more brave to explore the subconscious. Maybe the very positive one is that we're gonna unite because we realize that we are stronger together than alone. And surely this is going to bring a lot of new ways of healing, healing the self, healing the head, a new self discovery when it comes to, how the brain functions. We're going to see that. And hopefully we're going to see certain type of a movements. Let's save the world. Let's protect the world. Let's protect the ocean, for example. We can see movements about that. And surely a lot of us will want to find the road they belong to. Or simply you're going to say that I don't want to belong to any groups, cults, churches anymore. I can create my own kind of like dialogue. I'm also a god. I'm also a hero. I don't need to pay or pray for a god to forgive me. My forgiveness matters the most. And you know what's interesting? I mean, I just read it or heard it recently that apparently one European country made it illegal to pray. I have to check up on that. But if you know anything about it, do let me know. Because actually, that could be a Neptune in Aries type of thing, which is definitely against individual rights. So, guys, this is the Neptune Venus um, Mercury kind of like triple conjunction that I kind of wanted to share with you. I hope this approach helps you to understand or navigate your life. And then if you do like the video, please press like, share it, make a comment on it. What's your view on all these triple conjunctions? How do you see Neptune moving into the sign of Aries? I would love to hear your opinion on that. Thank you, everyone. See you soon. Bye bye.